Yeah, it definitely helps. We had a lot of requests last time around, which was really the generator for doing this again. You know, a lot of people weren't able to make that first call, and we didn't have a chance to record it. So we thought, you know what, let's do it again. Let's catch everybody that wasn't able to get on the last one, and then let's make sure we have it this time to be able to share.
Sure. Okay.
Certainly helps. We'll just give everybody a minute here to make sure everyone is on. It doesn't seem that we're having any trouble with people getting on without being admitted. So, you know, we've got a good turnout here, which is excellent.
A few people signed up here for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to see. And of course, you know, I'm sure everybody's used to this system, but once we get underway, if you can mute until the question period, that's really helpful, just because otherwise we get lots of other feedback kicking in and people chit-chatting and whatnot.
Sure.
And I'm going to just quickly share our deck here as well, so bear with me.
Probably Ray would have called you just so you know.
All right, I think we're getting close to everybody on now. Okay, I'm pretty much set. Darin, are you good if we get going here?
I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. So first of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming. Again, I'm Adrian O'Brien. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for Red Sea. Also on the call today is Darin Labrenz, our VP of Exploration, and Darin is very much running this program. He has an amazing strategy and vision in place for what we're about to do. So what I'm going to do is really I want to set the stage. Everyone. Oh, sorry. There's somebody on there. If everybody can just.
We don't have to. We only got 99 buttons. We're missing one.
No, 99 was what it's expected.
I thought that they would.
For 100.
You can't do the 100 if you did the 100.
Maybe or Friday's game should be. Well, it's gonna be pretty
And we
crazy.
get a 30 from Saturday.
Friday night and then.
Oh, still something to buy me
What
12.
did they send? The
We still-
starters? Or
Can you check today, see where's our B12?
Okay. If I can again just ask everybody to make sure they're muted as we get underway here, just so that there's not conversations climbing over top. That'd be really helpful. So again, what I'd really like to do is I really want to set the stage here and explain to everybody, you know, not just what we're doing, but what the opportunity at hand is. This is a remarkable situation that has unfolded. And certainly in terms of our team and the work they've done over the last few years to position us in this way in such an exciting country and a new place to explore is nothing short of remarkable. These opportunities are extremely, extremely rare. And to have the opportunity in a private company where we're not colored by market conditions and situations as such, we really have a chance to move this ahead and capitalize on such a unique opportunity when we go to IPO next fall. You know, what I really want to cover off here is, and I will give you a little bit of oversight on what the project looks like and what we're going to work on, but I really want to leave the meat and potatoes of that to Darin. You know, Darin's boots on the ground. He's spending time there working on this and developing his approach. And I want him to be able to explain what it is that he's doing and what kind of findings we've had this year in particular. We had you know, we raised around $2 million last year and we put that in the ground. Spent a lot of time in the field. Darin did a lot of sampling and a lot of reconnaissance and a lot of work across all three of our projects and positioned us now for a first drill program, which is going to be really cool and very, very exciting. But what I really want to talk about is Egypt in terms of being a last frontier. And when I say that, what I'm referring to is the opportunity to be, as our tagline on this opening slide says, to be exploring and to be working in the world's last unexplored greenstone belt. Now, I don't throw that around lazily. This isn't something that we're just throwing out there and saying, hey, it's the last greenstone belt on Earth. This is quite literally the last unexplored greenstone belt. And when I say that, we're talking, if you can imagine the world's historic and well-known greenstone belts, just imagine for a second that they did not have a single drill hole in them. That over the course of history, they had never been systematically explored. They hadn't been sampled. They hadn't been properly explored. No juniors had ever been there. No exploration company had walked the ground. That is quite literally what we're dealing with in Egypt. So you have a situation that is geologically the same as any of the really prolific greenstone belts in the world. If you look at Abitibi, you know, and I like to use Abitibi simply because it's a Canadian example. It's one that probably hits most close to home for most people on this call. That's 200 million ounces of gold. That's one of the best known greenstone belts in the world. It's 124 operating mines. And imagine in Egypt, there is only one to date, and it's due to a lack of exploration. This is a country that's only recently deregulated, and so we're in a position to be a first mover here. And you can look at others. You can look at Yilgarn in Australia. That contains something around 30% of the world's gold supply. Again, it's a greenstone belt. Now, when you look at Egypt as a comparative, you have an unexplored greenstone belt that is untouched and virtually undrilled. And there is one mine so far, which is Sakari. It's owned by Centamin. It's located right near one of our projects on the exact same structure, same geology, same timing, same rocks. And Sakari to date is 15 million ounces and counting. They produce 500,000 ounces per year. And that is the only operating mine in the entire country of Egypt, simply due to a lack of exploration. And if you want to use the other greenstone belts globally, Abitibi, Yilgarn, you can look at South African examples. There are hundreds of operating mines in each of those. And the likelihood of there only being one operating mine in the entire Arabian-Nubian Shield, or in particular, the Egyptian portion of that, the odds are literally almost impossible. There are going to be more. There's going to be many, many more as time goes on and exploration is carried out. But the ones that'll be rewarded most are really the first movers. And so we have this opportunity to be a first mover. We went into this area in a very early bid round in 2021. We managed to do reconnaissance for 2 years. We managed to pick up projects that we saw as the best in the country. And we were very fortunate. Our team did a great job. And we managed to get in there and pick up properties that really are some of the very best in the country. And so, you know, we have this opportunity now to be the very first to go out. And I would say with the work that Darin has been doing at Luxor in particular, we have an opportunity to duplicate the success at Sakari. And if we're right, this will be absolutely game-changing, and we'll be the first mover in Egypt with an opportunity to develop a brand new deposit. And it's super, super exciting. So just to give you a super quick look at what I'm talking about, here's a look at the Arabian-Nubian Shield and where we're positioned in terms of our properties. So we have Ra up north, which is basically a polymetallic but very high-grade gold project. We have Luxor about midway down near Marsa Alam, right between Luxor and Marsa Alam. And Luxor is the area that Darin's going to focus most on telling you about today. We've done a lot of work at Luxor, and as I mentioned, we're looking for a Sakari analog, and we think we have it. We have the right geology, we have the right timing, we've got grade, there's gold everywhere. There's a large artisanal operation that tells you that there's a lot of gold there. And when I say large, as I said, Darin will explain it, but we're talking very significant. And you know, this is the kind of project that could turn into the next Sakari in an absolute hurry. And so we'll be doing drilling there, and that's really the crux of what we want to talk about today. And then, of course, Oasis, which is down to the south. Oasis, again, very high-grade gold, artisanal mining, and a phenomenal opportunity to develop something there that has grade, scale, and size. You know, I think the point simply needs to be made that this is a remarkable opportunity. And as we move forward, we're in a position to be a first mover, to get into Luxor, to drill, and to go into our IPO in the fall with a bona fide discovery in hand. And that is unbelievably rare. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Darin, and I'm going to let him explain what we've done so far and what we're going to be doing at Ra, Luxor, and Oasis over the next 12 months.
Thanks, Adrian. It's a great overview. Yeah, again, welcome to all. Really happy to be here to present some of the work that's been done at our licenses in Egypt with Red Sea Resources, and importantly, some of the proposed work to come. I joined the company about 18 months ago, and it was after a visit to to Egypt to have a look at the projects, and I can tell you that from day one, I was absolutely blown away by the prospectivity that we see here. It is truly astounding to look at the quality of the 3 licenses that we have, and the quality of the targets that we've developed on those licenses, and realize that not a single drill hole has ever been completed on any of the licenses. Despite the fact that when you look at Egypt as a whole, it's probably one of the most historic mining countries in the world, given that we have gold that's been mined within Egypt dating back to the pharaohs and the Romans, and a lot of history there, but no modern exploration or really sustained geologic approach has been taken to the country, and so we really have a fantastic opportunity in front of us here. Just to touch again on the 3 licenses, Ra, Luxor, and Oasis. Collectively, they're about 750 square kilometers. And when you look at the Arabian-Nubian Shield, it's a package of rocks that was developed through the accretion of what we call iron arc terrains, and it's been subjected to periods of compression and extension that have developed the gold occurrences that are shown as small yellow circles there, and mine discoveries as the crossed hammers. What you note there is numerous discoveries and mines have been built in Saudi Arabia, down into Sudan and Eritrea, but really only the one mine in Sukari, and that really reflects on a mining law that was pretty prohibitive in terms of attracting investment in the country. In 2020, that law was modernized, and they announced a bid round in 2021. We were really fortunate to go in there during a period of COVID across the world that restricted travel from a number of competitors, and gave us a real mover advantage on acquiring what we think are some of the best licenses in the country. Geologically, when you look at the Nubian Shield within Egypt, it's typically divided into 3 regions. They're referred to as the Eastern Desert. To the south, you've got the Southeastern Desert, Central Eastern Desert, and then to the north, you have the Northeastern Desert. And as chance would have it, we have 1 license or block in each of those areas, with Oasis in the Southeastern Desert, Luxor in the central, and Ra in the north. And really, geologically, they're quite unique. When you look at the south, where we have Oasis, mineralization is dominantly controlled by northwest shearing, and that's certainly the case at our Oasis Gold project. In the central area, where we have our Luxor project, we're dominated there by extensional forces that were developed late in the development of the Nubian Shield. Those extensional forces were fundamental in forming the Sukari deposit, and we have a real strong analog at Luxor that we call WAM that we think shares a lot of similarities with the Sukari deposit. And then as we move to the north, we've got the Ra. We're into younger rocks here, dominated by younger granites and volcanics, and our main zone there is certainly controlled by those granites and volcanics. So to step into them, when we look at Luxor itself, this is our flagship license, and it largely is because of this analog to the Sukari mine, which is a 15 million ounce deposit. The Sukari mine is formed off a splay of a prominent geological feature there known as the Nugra Shear Zone. The Nugra Shear Zone wraps up through the Central Eastern Desert and then across and bisects our Luxor project. And so we have numerous targets on the Luxor license that really reflect that proximity to the Nugra Shear Zone. More recently, Centamin, which owns the Sukari mine, announced a new discovery that they call Little Sukari. Little Sukari sits right on that Nugra Shear, and again, lending credence to the importance of this structure in the Central Eastern Desert. So we think fundamentally we've got the right structure in place here. And what we'll do now is we'll zoom into Luxor and start to build up a bit of a model and a comparison, if you will, to the Sukari deposit, and give you a sense of why we're so excited about some of the targets that we have on this important license. So what I'm looking here is the red outline outlines our license. I don't have a scale bar on here, but we're looking at more than 10 kilometers east-west and more than 10 kilometers north-south within the license itself. The blue dashed lines represent important structural features that really control and drive mineralization on the Luxor license. Most important of which is the Umnar Nugris, which bisects the property in the center of the image here. The red stars outline some of the targets that we've developed over the last couple of years, and the most advanced of which is known as the WAM target, which sits in the south of the Umnar Nugris on a splay off that in a really structurally interesting position between some of the other features that we see there. Zooming in to give a little bit more color on some of the targets that we've developed. Bear in mind when we acquired this project, we were able to access historic information, both with respect to some of the early mapping and structural work that was done by Russians in the 1970s. We acquired information through the Mineral Resources Authority in Egypt to really drive our targeting in terms of acquiring licenses, and this really lit up as an important area. The only known occurrence at the time was the island target. It was identified by the Russians in the 1970s, but virtually no work has been conducted on that target to date from an exploration perspective. We've gone in there, we've mapped it, we've identified controls to mineralization through a network of north-south quartz veins that have significant density to them. And we've taken rock samples across a 3.5 kilometer by 2.5 kilometer footprint with individual gold grades within those rock samples ranging up to 430 grams per ton. As we continue to work and unravel the geological maps and structures across the license, we've developed numerous targets, all related to that Nugris shear zone, and they're highlighted here. I really want to show a strong comparison between the Sukari mine, which generates 500,000 ounces a year, and our WAM Island target. It is a direct analog. When you look at the host rock, we have the same host rock for both the Sukari deposit and our WAM target. That host rock intrudes a gabbro-diorite complex in both cases. They're both driven off the Umnar Nugris shear zone. When we look at the quartz veins, both the Sukari mine and our WAM target have several generations of quartz veins. They're all driven by tension during sinusoidal stress in the Nash extension. So this is that later period of extension in the Central Eastern Desert. The alteration in vein density increases close to these shear zones, and from a metal association perspective, arsenic, silver, lead, bismuth, barium at Sukari, very similar with respect to our WAM Island target. So that's really in a nutshell why we're so excited about the WAM target is that direct comparison to the Sukari deposit can be made, and it sits geologically within the same host rock, the same structure, and the same style of alteration, the same style of mineralization. When we look at the WAM target, it does have some, well, we talk about artisanal mining or illegal mining, if you will, but this is more than you see elsewhere within the Eastern Desert. We've got mechanized mining here with loaders and excavators, and they're really digging in across a broad footprint, uncovering both the veins that we've identified through some of our mapping, but also digging into the host rock and putting it onto leach pads. And it really gives us another level of confidence in terms of the overall potential of the WAM target, given the degree of illegal mining activity that's happening in the area. When we zoom in here, we can look on the left side at some of the sheeted quartz veins in that altered granodiorite, mostly vertical in this case, but there also are a series of flat veins in there. And again, as you move proximal to these shear zones, you get increased density, you get some stockwork style mineralization, very similar to the Sukari mine. On the right side, you can see some of that alteration of fracturing within the host rock itself, the granodiorite in the bottom right. We're looking at a strong brecciated zone close to one of those shear zones, again, highlighting that important characteristic. When we look at some of the samples we've taken there, I mentioned individual gold grades, 430 grams per ton. Channel samples here showing 10 meters at 2.3, 5 meters at 4.4. And I really want to highlight that while we have seen individual grades up to 400 plus grams per ton in individual veins within the WAM target, our model here is very much like the Sukari mine, which is predominantly an open pit mine. We're looking at a large bulk mineable target here. And the key to that is going to be delivering the density of veins that we see on surface, and starting to unravel them through a drilling program to establish that kind of scale and continuity in the third dimension. Probably is an important time to talk about scale. When you look at this individual map here, we've got we've got a grid there that's 500 by 500 meters. Individual veins we're looking at here have been mapped out from space, if you will. This is a satellite image here. We can see some of the illegal mining activity that is tracing these veins up over 500 meters. So we know we have great straight continuity to the veins. More recently, earlier this year out on site there, I was able to expand the WAM target, pushing an additional kilometer to the east, an additional kilometer to the south to establish that 3.5 by 2.5 kilometer footprint. It's not too hard to start doing back at the envelope math and realize that if we can establish the viability of this through further work and drilling, that we can quickly build up tons in this particular target area. And so this is an area that we will be focusing on with the funds that we're raising now. We are in the process of signing an initial contract with a in-country operator, Geodrill, to initiate the initial drill program on this. We've got a program of about 15 to 20 holes laid out that will test this target down to a depth of about 150 meters, and really again to establish the quality and character of this particular target. Stepping out, I'll just highlight a couple of the other targets on the Luxor project. 38 Special is a target that has really been moving rapidly over the course of the last 8 months through work on the ground. The initial sample we took there ran 38 grams per ton. As we've got in there, starting to mapping it, what we've uncovered here and developed is almost like our little WAM, if you will. It's got a little granodiorite intrusive in the middle in a sea of gabbro-diorite, but what we're seeing is extensive veining, stretching out again with strike lengths of over 700 meters, and really continuing to grow. This is looking some of the work that's been done there by illegal miners. We've sampled through here. Our 38 gram per ton sample was taken from the top of the hill there. That particular vein can be traced out again over 700 meters. And importantly, we're seeing a pretty strong density of veining again, with steep veins intersected by flat veins. And those flat veins are really key when you think about developing a bulk mineable target. These illegal miners, they're good at mining vertical veins because they can push down on them through pits. But when it comes to the flat veins, they have no real way of mining that. It is most effectively mined through a bulk mine operation. When we look at this image here, we're seeing how many of those flat veins that we see, they do carry gold. For scale, we've got one of our geos up at the top there, so you get a sense of the scale of this. Right on the Nuga Shear Zone, we've got a target there that I call the Shalul target. Really quite excited about that, given the degree of alteration and veining that we see on the shear zone itself. That rock is taken from the shear. It's what geologically we like to see. It's got a smoky gray color. It's got pyrite and arsenopyrite, so strong metallogenic association with gold there. And on the right, we see some strong alteration within the shear zone. I took a sample across there, 0.9 meters, 21 grams, and that lies within the wall rock, so not in the vein itself, but in the alteration zone around the vein. So again, a real strong supporting feature with respect to the prospectivity of this particular target area. So that's the flagship, if you will, but we are really blessed here at Red Sea to have two other licenses that in their own rights would be enough to build a company around, each with tremendous prospectivity. And so I'll just touch on those quickly here. With Oasis, we're sitting in the north, so we're in the in the southeastern desert. As I mentioned earlier, it's dominated by northwest shearing. We can see that through the orientation of some of the light gray area here. Those are dry riverbeds, if you will. They're called wadis internally, and they really reflect the structural fabric of the surrounding countryside. True to form, our Oasis targets are driven by the northwest shearing. In our case, we've got a Kashab shear that cuts across the property. It drives mineralization across 80 kilometers in the southeastern desert, and certainly does on our Oasis license. So mineralization that we see there is really driven by that shear and splays off of that shear. When we look at the shear itself, again, given the the fact we're in a desert environment, there's no cover. It's very well exposed. You can see again from satellite imagery, the blue dotted line highlights the shear itself, but you can see the light gray color, which is the alteration in the shear zone that's visible from space. We've traced out mineralization across 1,800 meters to this point. The shear itself bisects the property, so we've got about 5 kilometers of strike extent on our Oasis license. Gold grades up to 0.5 ounce per ton here. Importantly, we've done some channel sampling in the south end where we've got 4.5 meters at 6.6, 2 meters at 8.2. The shear itself is very steeply dipping to the right side of this image here. And so this is a classic shear hosted target. Really, we're looking at trying to establish continuity across that shear and build up the potential for what would likely be an underground type of target in this particular case. If we step across to the east, we're looking at a splay here off of the main shear, so we're about 400 meters to the east. Where the geos are standing on the right-hand side, we've collected samples up to 166 grams per ton and workings that date back to Roman times. More recent work there has uncovered mineralization about 600 meters to the north. You can see the ridge in the background with the white color here that's quartz veining that's been exposed. And then in the center of the picture, the red coloration reflects some sulfide mineralization in an area that looks to be quite exciting. So sampling here, as I mentioned, up to 166 grams per ton on the south end. We've established a new mineralized zone to the north there where we took a sample of 28 grams per ton gold. It's fairly flatly dipping, and we can trace that across over the hill for another 600 meters. So I'm excited about this target and the scale that we see there and the ability to continue to build it out and develop that real scale given the grade that we see there.
Hey, Darin, just going to jump
Yes.
in for 10 seconds. Did you want to share the deck that you've created as opposed to the one that's up screen right now, which is the traditional deck with more imagery in it from your end?
I think I'm good with what I'm showing right now. You are
Yes.
seeing the black background, are you not?
We can currently only see the deck, the original deck that we started with. So I can switch it out if you like. I could drop the share on this one and let you share the deck on your screen.
Oh, I thought I was sharing on my screen. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm following. I'm on the same slides you're talking about, but you have more imagery in your deck. So I think probably good to switch to that so you can go through all of them.
You give me,
You can go.
So what
You're
do you
sharing.
see? What do you see now, Adrian?
It's your screen. Yeah, you're good.
Interesting, because it showed me on my end that I was screen sharing for the entire presentation. So
That's the beauty of using Zoom. But you know what? We've got they both pertain to the same thing and have the same slides, so we're good. You just got more
Well,
pictures there.
there you go. Well, we're getting to the punchline here. We'll just dive into raw quickly here and touch on that. So raw is in the northeastern desert, as I talked about earlier. You're into a younger environment geologically. Mineralization at raw is driven by a sheared contact between upper volcanics and lower granitoid unit. When we look at the mineralization itself in the images that I'm showing now, we can see a cut there which has been mined by illegal mining. They're focusing on a vein there that carries very high grade polymetallic mineralization. So in this case, we're not looking at just gold. We've got a mineralized system here that carries gold, it carries silver, it carries copper, lead, zinc. Mineralogically and from an alteration perspective, it has appearance of what we call low sulfidation epithermal style deposit. So a little bit different than the mineralization we see on the other two licenses. What excites me about this particular target is that we can trace this sheared contact for about 2 kilometers on the raw license, and given the very high grade nature that we see there, it does have the potential to develop into quite a sizable deposit. When we look at the around that vein, we can see coloration here and shearing. That is an alteration zone that also carries gold mineralization. And so we're not looking at just this 1 to 2 meter vein, but a more broad package of rocks here that runs from 5 to 20 meters that is highly altered and has the potential to carry mineralization. When you look at the tenor of mineralization, you can see some tremendous grades on this particular image. Gold grades ranging up to 60 grams per ton, but again, we've got silver up to 600 grams per ton. We've got copper up to 1.6%. Sample here in the bottom of the image that runs 15.5% lead. You've got zinc up to 2%. So we, as a company, we own a man-portable rig. It is man-portable in the sense that you can break down the individual components and carry it. It's perfect for the raw environment. It's in port here in Vancouver in the process of being shipped across to Alexandria in Egypt. We will bring that rig onto the raw target. And what we'll be doing is setting up probably about 5 fences, if you will. So 5 sections along this 2-kilometer extent where we'll drill a fan of holes in each case to establish the tenor of mineralization down dip. So you can see we've got this 2-kilometer zone here that we've established at surface. It dips shallowly to the right of this image, and so we'll be testing that down dip continuity with these 5 fans of drill holes, looking to establish scale and tons on this particular target. So that's kind of reaching the end of the presentation. If you haven't seen the beginning part of the imagery, I'll just touch on a couple of the images that I was showing. You know, when we look at the WAM target area, I talked about some of the large scale mining. This is a picture of it here. Looking at the alteration, bottom left again, you can see some of the sheeted quartz veins in the granite diorite. There is a strong density of that, and as we get closer to the crossing shear zones, and the bottom right, you can see strong brecciation. We've got stockwork style mineralization within the granite diorite itself. And again, this is very similar to what you see at the Sukari mine. So a real strong analog for Sukari. Just showing again the footprint of mineralization here and some of the results that we've returned. Just wanted to touch on the 38 special quickly here again to show the density of steep veins that have been mined by illegal miners. But when we look at it in detail, we see a whole series of flat veins in the particular in the pits that have been excavated, and those flat veins carry gold mineralization. Again, they're very important and critical for defining the potential to develop a bulk tonnage target and ultimately deposit at the Luxor project. Quick image here, just showing the Shul target and the quartz vein that I talked about and some of the alteration. Excited in this particular case because we do have mineralization within the surrounding wall rocks, and not just within the vein itself, but we've got a more broad alteration zone around that important Nubra shear zone that carries gold mineralization. And so we'll just kind of leave it at that and just highlight again the tremendous opportunity we have in front of us. I effectively came out of semi-retirement to work on these particular licenses just because of the excitement I have for the potential you see on the ground there. It's absolutely astounding that we have 3 licenses, each with bona fide targets that could develop into mines. Tremendous grade. Scale's been established on surface through work that we've done through our prospecting and mapping. They're ready to drill, ready to go, and I think we have a real opportunity to build something important and truly have first mover advantage in Egypt, given the lack of modern exploration that's been conducted on the ground. We're currently raising funds to initiate the first drilling on the project. Initial work will be at Luxor. We've got, as I said, a first program laid out for about 2,000 meters of drilling at the WAM target, really, again, to establish scale not only in the planar fashion on surface, but to establish scale to depth and really establish the quality of that particular target. As we're doing that, we've got a rig on the sea that's moving across to set up at Ra and drill several fences across that main zone that we've established at Ra. And then we will be continuing to move the Oasis targets towards future drilling program as well. So I think this is a breakthrough year for Red Sea. We've got an opportunity to put drilling as a private company to give ourselves a real strong footing for when we go public later in the year. And so I'm truly excited. I think this is going to be a fantastic year for Red Sea Resources. So I think with that, Adrian, we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, that's awesome, Darin. One thing, I'll jump in with the very first question. Maybe you could just provide A little bit of your own background, because I know you and I, of course, have worked together for the last 6 or 7 years. We know each other really well, and your background for me, having worked with lots of various gold projects, not only is it really impressive, but it applies directly to what we're doing in Egypt. You have really great experience in this exact setting. So maybe you could just give a quick overview of your background.
Sure, absolutely. I've been a geologist by trade. I've been working in the industry for approximately 30 years. About half of that time was spent with a senior producing company, Placer Dome, which took me through. I guess I've had the benefit of working in early stage exploration through advanced exploration. I've worked on numerous feasibility studies and right through to mine building. From there, I moved into the junior side. I've worked as chief geologist, vice president of business development, and ultimately CEO in environments much like what we're seeing here at Red Sea Resources. So greenstone belts, gold mineralization. I have had the benefit of exploring numerous areas that have developed into mines in Canada, in Asia, and as well in Africa. And really, I talked a little bit earlier to Adrian about this, but I haven't felt this way for quite some time. When I went across to Africa in, I guess it'd be 1998, I worked at Bulyanhulu, which is a barrack mine that's about 15 million plus ounces. And there's a tremendous amount of illegal mining activity there at the time. And it just had that feel of a big mine. And ultimately, that's what it became. Went back to Africa to work at the North Mara mine in Tanzania again in the late 1990s, and it just felt the same. Again, had real potential there. Over the course of the 3 years that I worked there, we built it from a 2 million ounce deposit to a 5 million ounce deposit, made a bona fide discovery that's currently being mined. And I feel the same way right now. When I went across to Egypt last year and had a look at these targets, and we got Oasis in front of us here. I mentioned to Matt and Al, we're standing looking at one of the targets, and you can see the structure on the ground. You can see the alteration around the structure, and then you can look across the hills, and you can say, well, there it is over there. Another 500 meters, there it is. It just has that big scale feel. And when you look at the grades and the alteration and the scale, and realize that we have an opportunity here to go in and conduct the first modern exploration in a country with tremendous mining history, tremendous skill set with respect to the people and the academic background of some of the geologists that I'm working on the ground with. I think that this is something that has really got me excited, and I haven't felt this way in some time. So I'm super excited about the opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, you and I are in the same boat on that. We joined around the same time, and both saw the same thing. In looking at these projects, the opportunity is outstanding, and it's related to the country, it's related to the quality of the projects, it's related to the fact that they're simply unexplored. I mean, this is brand new territory, and we're the first to go in. And what you see and what Darin's done so far, the grades are nothing short of spectacular. I mean, these are absolutely remarkable. He's finding amazing grades, the right structure, the right geology, everything matches up. And when you look at Luxor in particular,
there for 16,800
clearly
on
see
base.
that analog, and you can clearly see where Darin's going. And if he's right, and we're successful in this drilling, we'll be going into an IPO, with something that is not just a 1 million ounce deposit. I know Darin says this often when we present together. We're not out to find a 1 million ounce deposit here. We're out to find Sukari number 2. And I think we're on the right track, and I think Luxor has a very, very real shot at being Sukari number 2. So it is super exciting from our perspective, for sure. Let's have questions. Anybody out there have something they'd like to ask? Just a quick reminder that most everybody is muted. So if you do have a question, by all means, unmute yourself and feel free to ask anything that you'd like to.
Well, I'd just like to point out, it's Greg over here. I can't look at this without thinking about what a fantastic opportunity is. I know I'm biased, but you look at this, and this is something that we just don't see. I see this as a once in a career event for a a brand new greenstone belt that is going to push ounces. And not only that, you know, the other thing, I mean, Darin's the guy who's able to exploit. I mean, Matt and Al and Adrian, now that team with Darin are able to really move this forward. I mean, you know, Adrian was instrumental in just raising $10 million for Midnight Sun, and no one wanted to give them any money. Trust me, 4 months ago, nobody wanted to give them money. He went out, he's got the ability to raise money, which is huge. And there's going to be a large pre-IPO marketing budget too. So you've got the two key prongs here of being able to have a fantastic project, plus the ability to tell it to the world. This is something special. And I don't want it to sound too salesy, but this is really, really impressive what they put together. That's my piece.
Thanks, Greg.
Hello, Adrian.
How are you?
I'm good. It's Richard Johnston here.
Good. Hey, Richard, how are you?
Fantastic, fantastic. All is good.
It
I
looks
was a
sunny
little
where you
late.
are too.
Oh, it is sunny and warm. It's a good thing.
Good stuff.
Excellent. Say I was a little late to the meeting. I'm wondering if you've already covered this. What type of timeline do you think we have for starting drilling?
I'll let Darin answer. You know, I think he's got his plan kind of in place now, and of course, it requires the financing that we have underway. So the plan is to get that completed, but then I'll let Darin answer as to how quickly he wants to get drilling.
Thanks.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the call, we own our own rig, which is we're in the process of shipping across to Egypt, and it will actually initially go to Raw to target that target area. In the meantime, we've got a draft contract in place with a local operator. We are looking to initiate drilling at Luxor. I say imminently. We're probably about 6 weeks out from initiating that program, but from a timeline perspective, it's very soon. And so we're ready to go. We've got the program laid out, and we've got a draft contract in place with funding secured. There's a bit of preliminary work we need to do on the ground there, but we are very near term for initiating drilling at Luxor. And once we get started, obviously I don't see us stopping. Given the quality of targets we have in front of us here, this is shaping up to be a very large drill program.
Excellent. Yeah, I remember that drill well. Brand new equipment. Looks really good. I don't think there's anything stopping us.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Really
Well, thanks for
appreciate
it.
that. Yeah, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, I had one question. Last call I was on as well, and I recall there were some slides that you guys didn't put up this time that weren't in the deck that you sent me. I saw there was the historic slides from Raw and I believe Luxor, where you guys had the really high grade 200 grams per ton grab samples and trenching on it. I was wondering if you could show me those slides quickly so I could take a picture of them to study them more, or you could send it to me if I'm able to look at it.
That's actually in Darin's deck. So what I'll do is I think Darin wouldn't mind just sharing that after the presentation. Hey, Darin?
Yeah, I can do that. Exactly.
Okay, thanks guys. Sorry, I'm very interested because I feel attached to this deal.
Yeah. No
Okay,
worries
thanks.
at all. We'll make sure you get it.
Adrian and Darin, sorry, I have to exit the Zoom. I really appreciate the information. I'm looking forward to watching the recorded. So if I missed anything, I just have to head into a meeting right now. But great to see you, and all the best to the team. And go Red Sea Resources.
Excellent. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
so much.
Sure.
Right, see you.
Yeah, it's Ted Grant here. Could you, what is the average grade of Sakari?
So the average grade of Sakari is 1.2 grams per ton. And
That's basically what you're looking for over here. Like, I mean, I understand you've got a number of high grade zones here, but when you crush it all.
yeah, that's right. You know, ultimately we'll establish what we have through drilling. But when I look at the WAM target, and you know, I truly do see it as a Sakari analog. And so similar to Sakari, we have individual veins that have grades, you know, up to 400 grams per ton. But I don't see us mining those veins individually. I see us mining it with larger equipment as a bulk mine. And so we're looking at something in that order. Obviously, I'd like to see a little bit more than 1.2 grams per ton, but Sukari has made it a 500,000 ounce per year mine and generate tremendous cash flow despite the fact that the government owns 50% of it.
Just to put some context on that, Ted, as well. We typically cover it in the presentation, but I didn't cover it at the beginning this time around. You know, if you look at Sukari and you look at Sentiment just as a comparative, I mean, it's essentially a single asset company. And as Darin just mentioned, they own 50% of Sukari. They rebuffed a $2.5 billion offer from Endeavour in 2019 for this asset. And I think that volumes about what the asset is and what they see as the future potential. You know, it's going to keep growing and get larger and larger here as they go. And they've got many years of production to go. So it's a stellar asset. And if you look at not Midnight Sun, but Red Sea, and you look at what we have in terms of our arrangement around our licenses, we are under the New Mining Act in Egypt. So we own the vast majority of our licenses. We didn't have to give up 50% like Sentiment did. So it's really a much, much better position to be in and moving these forward with a very small percentage ownership of the Egyptian government. You know, so it's right. It's definitely the right environment to be doing it in.
Now, if you are successful your first 2,000 meters here, as you say, you're going to continue drilling. I mean, that's what I'm interested in, to see where somebody's going to come in here and, you know, drill, you know, 20 to 30,000, 40,000 meters a year. Do you foresee that happening here as from the data you've already collected?
I definitely see that opportunity. Absolutely. When you look at the, you know, you look at just Luxor itself and the scale of the mineralization that we see at the WAM target, and you think about the fact we've got 8 different targets at Luxor. This is just the beginning. Like I see, obviously, with success, which I truly believe in, I see us ramping that drilling up to you know, a year down the road here, where we're not looking at a single rig putting in 2,000 meters. We're looking at multiple rigs trying to establish what the size of the deposit is. And so that's the way we're looking at this. We've got a model that we've established that provides the opportunity to build out that scale. We have a direct analog in country that's in the same geological environment, got the same host rock, same structure, same alteration, same style of mineralization, all those things us geologists like to talk about. And so now we need to establish, you know, how big is it? And that'll be done through drilling. The first program really is to establish that third dimension, but certainly with the success we expect, we'll be ramping that program up.
Yeah, and to put it in really simple layman's terms, I mean, you look at the images that Darin showed you, and you look at what we can see. I mean, you can go on Google Earth. You can look at Luxor from Google Earth, and you can see everything. There's no cover on this project, but just simply looking at the scale of what they've got there and what they developed so far, it's not really a question of whether there's a mine at Luxor. It's a question of how big it is. You know, we joke that you could declare commercial production, but the reality is you can see what they're doing on these vertical veins and what they're accomplishing, and it's nothing short of incredible. So, you know, you've got something big there. It's just a question of how big it is, as Darin just said.
Okay. So this is all private for right now. Just give me a quick rundown of what you're looking at here and when you're going to, you know, plan on going public, and what's, you know, the share price and difference, or are you waiting to get assay results first?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we've you know, tentatively laid out a plan to go public around November timeframe of this year. Obviously, we want to get some drilling in first, and we've got a plan in place here to do so. That gives us lots of time to get that first drill program in at Luxor, to get some results back, to initiate drilling at Ra. With the funds that we're looking to raise at this particular time, we will have some flexibility to control that timing as well, to make sure that we're coming into a positive market and doing so with results in hand.
Okay. So yeah, okay, well, obviously you got to get some more data before you do your major drilling program or the financing for it.
Well, this program is pretty significant, Ted. You know, the goal is to go in here and go into the IPO with a discovery in hand. You know, we can see what's there. We can see how high these sample grades are, you know, up to 400 grams per ton. And really, it's about connecting the dots and showing that 3.5 by 2.5 kilometer footprint at Luxor is the real deal. If it is, you're going to build ounces very, very quickly, and we can show that, and that's going to give us a valuation going into the IPO that's far beyond what we would get otherwise. You know, and ideally we can IPO this thing at a much higher level with that bona fide discovery in hand.
Yeah, no, sure. With that, you're forecasting that before the end of the year?
The goal is to get drilling right away. As soon as we complete this financing, Darin's going to get moving. Darin's headed to Egypt here very shortly, and to get this program underway. And ideally, we're aiming at that IPO in the fall.
Okay, no timing on it yet, just sometime in the fall.
No, November is our kind of soft time frame. That's what we're headed for. You know, and that's the goal. We're going to try and stick to that and aim for November for the IPO.
Hi, I was going to ask Darin, is the WAM target by itself big enough to build a Sakari, or do you need the rest of the deposit?
No, it's big enough by itself. When you look at that footprint, the footprint is larger than the Sakari mine footprint today. So I'm not saying that it's going to be a larger deposit, by no means, but certainly we have the footprint in place there within the WAM target itself to develop one.
And the other targets at Luxor, they could be, would you consider them satellites, or would you consider them standalone mines, Darin, if you were, I mean, I appreciate this is advanced economic geology we're dealing with here, but I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are in general. I appreciate it's speculative, but I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. With all the forward-looking statements in place, there's to date, there's 8 targets. You know, when we started, we had 1. We continue to generate more targets. Understanding the structural fabric and framework within the Luxor license was key to kind of unraveling that. Work earlier this year continued to build out targets on the north of the WAM target. From you know, from a let's wave our hands around and say, what would a future mine look like? Well, any one of those targets could develop into a deposit and could develop into a mine. And at the end of the day, and this is similar to when I worked at North Mara in Tanzania. We had 3 different deposits there that fed into a central milling complex. So, you know, whether one's the primary mine and others are satellite, at the end of the day, you're trying to build up that inventory of tons and ounces and grade, and then optimize the sequencing of them to drive the maximum value earliest on the project to pay back your capital. So the way I see this going is WAM's got the biggest footprint. It's got the best opportunity today to turn into that large scale mine. But we do have an opportunity to build additional ounces through some of the other targets that we have on the Luxor license.
And would they for the most part be open pit, Darin, or would they be a combination, or you know, like of the 8, how would you classify them?
Yeah, there's potential for both for sure. You know, even Sakari itself, when you look at it, it started as an open pit deposit, and that's the main driver of the ounces there. But they've gone underground, and they are mining material that's a little bit higher grade in I guess proximal to some of these shear zones. So it's a combined underground open pit mine at this point in time, and certainly, you know, we got to drill it and determine what we have, but I wouldn't close the book on either with respect to what we could develop here with further work at Luxor. You know, to speak specifically to the targets, you know, WAM is being looked at as a bulk tonnage opportunity here. Right. But when I look at the mineralization and the target we've developed along the Nuger Shear, you know, it has that character of being steeply dipping. You've got a vein that looks quite attractive. You've got an alteration zone that is strong, and it carries mineralization. And in that particular instance, my first thought would be, well, it looks to me more like an underground target. Yeah. But you don't really know until you drill these things.
Yeah, that was my assumption as well, Darin. But I just thought I'd run it past you and see what your thoughts were on that. And the other two on the other 2 projects. Especially Oasis, how would you characterize that mineralization in terms of mining techniques?
Oasis, when I look at the Oasis number 2, as I described it earlier, which is right on the shear itself, I would look at that as an underground style target, and I say that because you've got a mineralization that's hosted within a shear zone that's steeply dipping. Right. You know, it has that feel to it. But having said that, there are a number of splays. We've got 7 targets in the footwall of the main shear. If those start to develop up and show promise, then you're going, well, maybe you could put a pit around the shear and step back your footwall into these splays and develop a mine in that fashion, and then ultimately go underground. So we got to do more work to really start talking about how they'll be mined. But
a super pit around the main shear.
yeah, exactly. When you look at Oasis East, which is on the east side of the shear, we've got fantastic grades in that particular instance. If I just throw it up here quickly, you can look at some of the grades that I have on that particular target. They're tremendous. And they cover quite a big footprint from the bottom right, where we have 17.1 grams per ton to the 5.8 grams per ton. You're looking again at about 2 kilometers of potential strike. But that cluster of samples in the middle there, when you get on the ground and you look at the mineralization at Oasis East, it's actually flat. And so you got a whole series of veins that are flat dipping. And so then you're looking at that saying, well, maybe there is a pit here. And that does drive some of the strategy in terms of how you drill it to develop out that potential. But I think again at Oasis, there's potential for a mining method that could encompass on open pit, underground, or a combination of both.
I see. No, it's quite exciting. I mean, it's hard to get your arms around this many constructs in one.
It's true. It's true. It's a blessing and a curse. But I'll take the blessing to have 3 licenses, each with bona fide targets on them, and a whole suite of targets. Our key here is to remain focused and disciplined, to make sure they're spending their money in the most appropriate fashion, and that's exactly what we intend to do. Develop up these targets to build value quickly.
Yeah. And I guess he used the small drill up on the north because of terrain, I guess. And so,
yeah. So the northern license has got the most topography, and where that sheared contact, mineralized contact sits, the man portable rig that we have is absolutely perfect for that environment. And so it'll go there first, but ultimately, we'll see how these things play out. Stepping with the contractor at Luxor just allows us to move quickly in terms of getting the drilling initiated while we have the rig on the water.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great plan anyway, Darin. But thanks very much. I just thought I'd drill into some of your ideas before I let you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Darin, Doug Mason here. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tremendous presentation. I can see why our brokers have been so excited to promote this issuance. Well done. Listen, on your initial drill program, I'd just like to know if your program large enough to potentially get an inferred resource category prior to going public? Or we just
no, we wouldn't get to that point. Given the scale and the footprint of what we see there, is going to take far more drilling to start talking about resources. But what I want to be able to do is paint a picture to that. And it's easy for us to look right now and say, well, I've got 100 veins across this footprint, and they run up to 400 grams per ton, and we can establish that scale on surface. What I want to do with the drilling is show that it also persists to depth, and that we have the potential to develop into a mine. And it really allows us to wave our arms and paint a picture towards a resource without really establishing it at that point.
That's terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Is there any other questions there?
Yeah, this is Carrie here. Can you tell me, is the drill on the water now?
Is not. We're working final stages with a expediting group out of Cairo, and intend to have it in the water shortly.
And also, did I see on this presentation or the last that B2 Gold is also having a license there?
Yeah, so in the 2021 bid round, B2 Gold participated and acquired a number of licenses around our Luxor license. We've also got Barrick on the ground. They're active. and they're active to the south of us at Luxor. Obviously, Sentiment acquired quite a large number of licenses, mostly focusing on around the Sakari mine itself, so contiguous there, but they're doing a little bit of work to the north of that as well, along something we call the Mubarak Shear, which also cuts through our property. So your big players, if you will, B2 acquired licenses. They are not active on the ground there. They've had some changes internally at B2 with Garrigan retiring. He was a real driver for work in Egypt. So they have not been active on the ground. Barrick is quite active, and obviously Sentiment's quite active. And then there's a couple other juniors that are doing work on the ground there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had one more question on regards to the assays. What's the timing on that? Do you have them assayed in Egypt, or do you have to send them out of the country?
So what we've done to date is work with ALS Chemex. Obviously, they're just across the water here in North Vancouver, but they have a prep lab in Marseilles, which is where our base is. So our samples go out to that prep lab. They get reduced to a pulp, and then that pulp gets exported. Assaying is being done by ALS in Europe, both with respect to gold and some of the multi-element work that we've done. More recently, another group actually headquartered in Burnaby called MSA Labs. They've established a wet lab in Marseilles, and what that means is they're actually doing gold assays, so the analytical work in country. And so our turnaround time has been, in that 4 to 6 week range with ALS. By the time you do the prep work and you ship it out and you get your results back, and given some of the workload they have, particularly at the wet lab, having MSA in country gives us another avenue that we can approach, and they're promising much quicker turnaround time. So I think we've got an opportunity there to speed that up.
No, that's still not too bad. That's good.
Darin, if the same thing happens in this financing that happened with Midnight Sun, and it escalates far beyond your target, how fast can you scale up your operations?
Oh, I think we can scale up very quickly. We certainly have the people in place or access to the people. There are multiple operators in country with respect to drilling, and they have capacity. So I think we could ramp up very quickly.
Hey, Darin, just to flesh out that, because Kerry pointed this out earlier about was the drill rig on the water. Can you just flesh out? My understanding is we don't need the drill rig to be in country to begin drilling right now. Can you just kind of flesh that out so it's well understood what the program is right now?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, there are several operators that currently have rigs in the country. So these are drill contractors. They've been well established since the initial work at Sakari from an exploration standpoint in the 1990s. We have a good relationship with them, and they have availability, so they have capacity to drill. And so, Greg, yeah, that's right. We've got a draft proposal from one of those operators to supply equipment. It's ready to go. It's waiting on us to sign it and get that process going. So we don't have to wait for our rig. Our rig is going to be fantastic in providing flexibility, low-cost drilling, and opportunities to manage our programs effectively. But as we have success and scale up, that will come from in-country, and that capacity is there.
Right, and my commitment is to send Darin back to Egypt in the height of summer in July, like right away for Canada Day. So that's my goal, and I will achieve that. So enjoy. It's my fault.
Thank you, Greg. I didn't share my photo of the plus 50 degrees from last summer in Egypt.
But it's worth it.
Absolutely worth it.
All right. How are we doing with any other questions from those that are still on the call? We pretty much covered the details now.
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation.
Excellent. Excellent. Sounds like we're there. So in follow-up, of course, you can speak to Greg or Ray. You can also reach out to us anytime, either aobrien@redsearesources.com or Adrian at midnightsunmining.com. Either email address will get to the same place. Please feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any questions. And of course, you can reach out to me and get in touch with Darin as well. And again, this is recorded, so we'll make this available to be sent out. And if you get in touch with us and you want a copy of this, we're happy to send it out so you can review as well.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks everyone for attending this today, and you know, I hope that that you share our excitement as we move forward on this this project.
Thanks, everyone.